walking out to my car last night wearing these huge headphones, and I thought to myself I shouldn't wear these headphones because while I'm listening to music, someone could sneak up behind me and snatch me up, because these are things that women have to think about in order to not be made dead. And I thought, no, I'm fine. My car's right next to the house. So I was walking on the sidewalk, and I hear a man pierce through my music. His voice went, "Hello," and I screamed like a motherfucker banshee. It was dark, I was on the sidewalk, and I was spinning circles, and there was no man to be seen. Like an invisible man was speaking to me, and that was the scariest part of it. And then I look over, and parked right in front of my car was my neighbor's pickup truck, and crouched in the back of the pickup truck amidst a bunch of tools and boxes and webbing and other serial killers was my neighbor, just crouched there hanging out. And I had to apologize to him as if I was the one acting sketch because I screamed. Like, did I almost get taken?
Story time about the girl who used me to get with my guy best friend. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 9th grade. Well, at the end of summer, right before school started, this girl named Liv added me on Snapchat. And I had seen her all around school. She was very popular and a little bit stuck up. But I added her back, and then I got a call on Snapchat from her. I answer very awkwardly, and I'm like, "Hi." And then she was like, "Oh, I've seen you in a lot of this guy's pictures. Are you guys like best friends?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sort of." And she goes, "Have you ever thought about dating him?" It was just an extremely weird, out of nowhere conversation. Anyway, so fast forward 2 weeks, I walk in the first day of school with my best friend Tommy, and Tommy and I have like every single class together. For some reason, Liv thought that we were friends, and she would come and go as she pleased. Like Tommy and I would be standing at my locker, she would come over. Anyways, fast forward to chemistry. She walks in the class, winks at Tommy, like for part 2. Part 2 about the girl who used me to get with my guy best friend. So like I said, we were in chemistry, she walks in and she winks at Tommy. And I look over real quick and I realize that her nails were vermilion. That's Tommy's favorite color. And by the way, like I said before, I did not know this girl at all. We had never hung out. She never talked to me before this. Not to mention, anytime that her and I talked, she would only talk about Tommy. Fast forward a couple days, we're in chemistry, and somehow she got her assigned seat next to me. And she was like, "Hey, do you want to study for the chemistry test together?" And I was kind of excited because I thought that I had a new best friend. So I said, yeah. Later on, she comes to my house. I never told her an address or anything like that, so I was very creeped out about how she knew my address. We studied for the test, and she goes, "Hey, do you want to hang out with Tommy and a few other guys tomorrow?" Well, tomorrow was the day that I was going out of town. So she goes, "Okay, maybe next week." After being out of town, I came back on a Saturday, and the next day I get a text from Tommy, like for part 3. Part 3 about the girl who used me to get with my guy best friend. So like I said, she asked me if I wanted to hang out with Tommy and a few other guys. I told her that I was going out of town. When I got back from out of town, the next day I get a text from Tommy. He was flipping out on me. He said that I was talking about him to Liv. And apparently I said that I was happy that his mother died. And a bunch of other Well, after that, Tommy cut me off, so I was lonely, and I started hanging out with Liv more, even though she said that terrible stuff to Tommy and made him cut me off. So fast forward a year, he is a new best friend, right? I get a DM from her on Instagram saying like, "Hey, did Tommy used to be your best friend?" Pretty much everybody knew what happened between me and Tommy. But she was like, "That girl that you're best friends with is dating him now." And then he completely cut me off. So technically, she used both her and I to get with Tommy. But after dating for literally like 2 months, he cheated on her because she slept with 5 other guys.
For telling my husband I don't want to give our child his last name. My husband and I have been friends since middle school, dating since junior year of high school, and we got married as soon as I graduated college. We've been married for 2 years now, and we just found out I'm pregnant with our first child. When we got married, I hyphenated our last names, with my last name being first, because I believe marriage is a union, and taking his last name felt like him claiming ownership over me. My husband was frustrated with this decision, but I stood my ground and was not going to budge. He eventually accepted this, but he did not hyphenate his last name. This bothered me for reasons I can't explain, but I never brought it up as something I had a problem with because I honestly understand. Now I'm pregnant and I wanted to tell him now, while we still have 8 months to discuss it, that I want to hyphenate our child's last name. He blew up on me, telling me how I'm being ridiculous and that I can't actually expect him to be okay with that, and he just won't stand for it. I told him I want our child to have our last names. He told me it wasn't his last name, it was mine. I told him that he is the ridiculous one for not realizing how silly he sounded by saying my hyphenated last name wasn't also his name. Side note, before we even got married, he told me he wanted his hypothetical son to have his first name. I agreed, with some reluctancy if I'm being honest, but I love my husband and I love his name. I brought this fact up to him. If we had a son, my husband wants him to have his first and last name, and even if we have a daughter, she'll still have his last name. I told him that it wasn't fair. I even told him we could put his last name first when we hyphenate, but he was not having it. I went on to say that my sister has constant problems because her son doesn't have her last name, even though the father has never been in my nephew's life. She gets questioned by doctors and teachers if she's really his mom, and since she's gotten married, she even has problems with getting him under her husband's TRICARE. I told him if we ever separated, I don't want those problems. Then he blew up on me again for assuming we would separate, and that's when I finally snapped and told him he was being a stubborn, self-centered man-child. He knew that wasn't what I meant and he was being extremely obtuse. He left to cool down, and now I'm getting texts from my mother-in-law saying that I was being unreasonable and manipulative and had to reduce the insults to throw a fit to get what I want, even though I didn't get what I wanted. I can understand he wants his child to have his last name, but I feel like hyphenating it is still giving the child his last name.
A person who I know in real life, not an internet troll, not a stranger, a person that I know, informed me recently that I need to dye my green hair back to blonde because I look poor, and I can't be looking poor because I'm a public figure. I was like, whoa there, Regina George, that is a lot to unpack. Because, like, first of all, women, people in general, are not required to fit the cultural beauty standard. It's not her job, it's not her purpose. And the cart girl at Target tells me she loves my hair every time I go there. That's the kind of service I pay for. She's just like Lord of the Carts, standing at the front door every time I walk in, and she's like, I love your hair. And I'm like, I love you, Queen of the Carts. Second, calling me a public figure makes it sound like I'm running for Congress, or like you saw an article of me on page 6 with a picture of my green hair that said something like, obscure TikToker with under 1 million followers poor? Question mark? And neither of those things are true. And if the page 6 article was in fact real, that would make me really happy, because then maybe TikTok would give me a little blue tick and people would stop impersonating me on here as much, and you guys would stop sending me DMs saying, this you? It's not me. It's never me. I'm too lazy to have a second account. But frankly, I'm flattered at this point that anybody would be using my likeness to catfish people, since apparently I'm so poor looking. So I told her, I said, Regina, I am poor, and people know that. And if I wasn't poor, people would know that too, because I'd be walking around like Ariana frickin' Grande. Why did I say her name so weird? I would have hair extensions down to my butt, and I'd be wearing nothing but an oversized sweatshirt and no pants, because I hate wearing clothes, but I'm always cold. But I'd wear expensive shoes, so people would be like, oh, she can afford pants if she wants pants. She just doesn't want pants. I would have a security guard trailing behind me to protect me from creepy men, and a Starbucks drink in my hands at all times, and an engagement ring on that hand that I bought from Tiffany's by myself because I don't need somebody to love me to wear a pretty ring. And I would have 500 well-cared-for dogs waiting for me at home. That's the dream. But I don't have Ariana Grande money, and that's okay. I have money that buys me $12 purple hair dye that fades to every color of the rainbow on its way out. So she said, you look poor. I said, I am poor. And she said, well, nobody's going to give you a job if you look poor. And I was like, that's why people have jobs, is to be less poor. The employer knows I'm poor going into it, or want to be less poor. I was like, thank you for your feedback, but I'm going to go ahead and continue to have green hair that I never brush.